Hey, everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. I am Austin Ward, joined again by Spencer Holbrook. Hey, we promised we'd be back. There might be more news coming, and this is a big one for Ohio State. Chris Olave, who led the Buckeyes in catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns, has been one of the most clutch performers in all of college football, one of the most dangerous deep threats and wide receivers that you will find anywhere. Not going to the NFL draft. He has made his decision. He sat on it for a week, and as the deadline approached, decided that he would stick with Ryan Day and Brian Hartline for one more year. Chris Olave returning to the Buckeyes. This is a huge one, Spencer.
Yeah, it's huge because when you get a guy that's this reliable and this dangerous and this potent, and you compare him with Garrett Wilson next year and have that stability with Jeremy Rucker coming back, the offense almost looks like it's starting to take shape. And it almost seems like with Chris Olave back in the fold, with Jeremy Rucker back in the fold, it doesn't really – I'm not going to say it doesn't matter who plays quarterback, but whoever the Buckeyes hand the keys to is going to have a nice sense of stability when they're throwing the ball. It seems like everything's starting to take shape for this team to once again be able to get to the college football playoff.
Well, yeah, and then you add in what you're going to have on the offensive line with, Thayer Munford making his intentions clear over the weekend. We expect that Nicholas Petit-Frere will follow suit. You have those two tackles. All those pieces that you mentioned, building blocks for the next quarterback at Ohio State, very useful, whether that's C.J. Stroud, Jack Miller, or Kyle McCord. We can get into that, later on. But Chris Olave, this is the latest example of, this selfless mentality, the way that he's wired just a little bit different than just about anybody else. You look at what he has already accomplished in these 3 years, emerging on the scene as a freshman with those big plays in the game, postseason touchdowns, even, last year after the difficult, situation with the Fiesta Bowl and breaking off that route, then coming back and getting, redemption in that Sugar Bowl against the Tigers. He's done almost everything that you possibly could. Now, he doesn't have a national championship. Now, I'm not saying that that's the sole motivator for him, but he's always been, fueled by different things than almost anybody else. It's well known that he was an under-the-radar recruit, and, Ohio State kind of stumbled onto him by accident and all that stuff. He's I guess maybe it's because he wasn't a 5-star number one recruit that he's been able to, continue to do this and approach things quietly and never be one of those divas at the position, the way that's so cliche. I mean, he loves being part of this offense, part of that program. Nobody talks about the brotherhood more than Chris Olave, and he has backed it up by decision, which is something we've talked about. If you love it that much, then you should probably have a bunch of guys willing to stay and put off the draft for a year.
And it seems like they're starting to get that from some of their key contributors, guys that need to come back and probably should come back anyways for their own good, are coming back and making that decision. And he's just the latest guy. Like, this is massive for Ohio State to have a guy that is so reliable, so consistent. His practice habits are going to rub off on the freshman wide receivers. You got 3 of those coming in that are going to be impressionable. And to have Chris Olave as the receiver and as the leader in that receiver room, to have him man the offense and even teach a quarterback, some of the things he's learned over his time, being able to, he's been around Justin Fields for a couple of years. He understands the offense. He knows what it takes to get to that national championship game. And for him to put off a low first round, early second round grade in order to come back, maybe win a national championship, maybe win the Blitnikoff. He's going to be high on that list next year. I know that, a preseason All-American. I'm sure all the expectations are going to come with that. He still is showing the selflessness to come back, put off all the millions of dollars that he probably can make. This is massive. I don't know if we can really put into words how big this is for this offense.
Yeah, and I think that it's part of, and we talk about culture all the time here for Ohio State, but that's big picture for the program. When you narrow it down to which units have backed that up and proven it the most, Chris Olave was coming up at a time where he saw what Paris Campbell and Johnny Dixon and Terry McLaurin, the standard that they set. He was a part of that, when Austin Mack and Benjamin Victor and those guys the next year were doing the same thing, being around veteran guys who wanted to teach and leave a legacy working with the younger guys. Chris Olave will have to answer these questions for himself, but I would bet that he looks at what, the way that Terry McLaurin is viewed in the program, the contributions that he made, the way that he's spoken about so reverentially, and wants to be talked about that way. And he still could have been, for what he did as a junior for this unit. But those guys, we've talked about that before, where this year they were losing, six guys over the last 2 years that they had to replace moving on to the next level. this is an important bridge to get those decorated freshmen from last year a little bit more experience. They're going to be a bigger part of the offense. Maybe Brian Hartline will be able to start getting back to 5 or 6 guys and not just throwing as heavily to Olave and Garrett Wilson, which, by the way, is not a problem because those guys are 2 of the best wide receivers in the country. But, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's part of this decision for Olave to cement himself. He could break a bunch of school records potentially, and he gets to, make sure that there's some security, going in as Ohio State puts a new quarterback on the field.
Yeah, and I think the cultural aspect of this, being remembered like Terry McLaurin and being able to, leave your mark on the program that kind of took a chance on him. They saw him in a throwing session with Jack Tuttle and decided he was a receiver they wanted to take a chance on. It's just a low 3-star guy, and you almost wonder if he thinks that he owes it to the program, to come back. And we'll get to talk to him, I'm sure, about all of that because he's going to for sure probably be a captain this year, I would assume. But he's going to be one of the leaders here. And I think that Ohio State gets a huge stability point for whatever quarterback, whatever wide receivers are going to be on the field. You're going to, that on 3rd and 5, if you need a quick slant or a quick curl, Chris Olave is going to be there. He's going to get those feet down on the sidelines. He's going to do everything the right way, and you're going to have that security blanket in every aspect as a captain, as a wide receiver, as a part of the offense, probably still as a gunner. I don't think he's ever going to give that duty up. I think that he's cemented himself in that regard. But it just, again, I can't overstate how big this is for the program just to get a guy like Chris Olave, not just back on the field, but back in that locker room.
I named 5 of the 6, so my apologies to KJ Hill for not including him in that. Another guy who could have made the decision to leave early, really all of them, had opportunities to do so if they had wanted to go cash checks. So there's a bit of a tradition now for Zone 6 of guys, wanting to stay through, whether it's 4 or whether it's 5 years. And Olave has now seen that. Plus, how much better coaching could you possibly get than from Brian Hartline? Those two are very close, have developed a tight relationship. So we know how this works. You're still going to have Olave and Garrett Wilson to build around. Jamison Williams, we saw him coming on later as the season progressed. That's a pretty good top 3 right there that just about anybody in the country would trade for. Then you've got, Jackson Smith and Jigba. When he was healthy and able to play, we saw him making, spectacular catch early on, the touchdown toe tapper. Julian Fleming, what he did when Chris Olave was out in the Big Ten title game. Big time there, and you're about to get some more guys on the way. Another 5-star, the top player in the country, in Emeka Egbuka, enrolling and getting into spring ball. So this, Brian Hartline, he's got more talent than you could ever hope to have in one room.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention a guy, if he can progress a little more, G. Scott. You mentioned a guy like Jaden Ballard. You mentioned a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. That name might ring a bell for some people. I just think this wide receiver room has a chance to get completely better than it was last year. And when you bring back everybody, and Brian Hartline's bringing back everybody, I think for the first time since he took over this job, which is kind of crazy to think about, but he's bringing every single player in the wide receiver room, I think, right? Every single player is going to be back, right?
I think that I think his hands are clean of DeMario McCall at this point.
Well, okay. Yeah. Every single player is back, right? That's what I said. So every guy who contributed in that wide receiver room is going to be back. And it's kind of scary when you think about, even with a new quarterback, what these wide receivers really could do when you get Olave and Wilson and Jamison Williams and Jeremy Ruckert and, Jackson Smith and Jigba more comfortable in the offense. All of those guys together, plus you add those freshmen, oh my gosh, I don't know what the Big Ten is going to do because they're not going to stop Ohio State, that's for sure.
Yeah, and, there's going to be the benefit of a running game that should be dominant as well. So it's interesting how this will all tie in because, Ryan Day, he's earned the benefit of the doubt with getting that decision right at quarterback. But when you have those receivers to throw to, when you have Jeremy Ruckert in that offensive line, there's really no excuse. C.J. Stroud, Jack Miller, Kyle McCord, whoever it is, you're not going to have a better situation. I understand that they're going to be inexperienced, that none of them have thrown a pass at the college level yet, and that's a big jump. But it'd be a lot more difficult to get your first reps at that level if you weren't throwing to Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and off the bench you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jamison Williams and Julian Fleming and Jeremy Ruckert and all these. Like, this is the ideal situation. So it adds even more urgency, I think, to spring ball, to see who can take that lead. I personally think it'll be C.J. Stroud. Again, we've got a lot of time to get into that over the next couple of months and then building into August and September. But just this is a huge deal. You said a number of times, Spencer. I mean, this is you don't often get guys with Chris Olave's talent back for one more year.
Yeah, it's to have a guy that's got a first or second round draft grade, put that to the side, knowing that he probably can't go any higher just because of his size, weight. Like what the people look for in the NFL, his ceiling is probably where he is right now. And to have him come back and be selfless enough to come back, it's huge. And this program will see the benefits of that, not now, but in November during a practice when everybody's tired and Chris Olave is still going. You know, that's where he makes the biggest impacts, is his practice habits to rub off on everyone else. I am excited to watch this offense already, and it's January 18th.
Yeah, already moving into this offseason. And for anybody who is still a believer in that diva mentality, Ohio State's wide receivers doesn't apply. Look at what's happened over the last couple of years. Chris Olave now the latest embodiment of that. He has made his decision publicly known. He will return for a senior year with the Buckeyes, a captain and a leader. Hey, maybe he'll change numbers again. That could be a candidate to wear that block O. We'll see what happens in this offseason. But another big development for the Buckeyes. Breaking it down with Spencer Holbrook, I'm Austin Ward for full coverage all year round of Ohio State. Stay with us at LettermenRow.com.